Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon, so should you. Enjoy your treat!
In response to Akira Toriyama passing away from a subdermal hemorrhage at the age of 68, I have decided to make a video like it seems many have, but I wanted to collect my thoughts. That's why it is a couple days after the fact. I wanted to put out my Bleach video first so that I wasn't actually trying to be upbeat and stuff like that after I made this video, because it is something I want to talk about, but I want to do it a little bit differently than I know some other content creators have. And a lot of people are talking about like what Akira Toriyama meant to them, or like what Dragon Ball meant to them, like specifically how it impacted their life. And I'm kind of going to go along the same lines as that, because a lot of people that know me personally know that like Dragon Ball is like part and parcel to my personality, and it's actually like my #1 favorite thing ever. So I'm not as young as a lot of people think that I am. I started watching Dragon Ball in 1988. I had my hands, I'm not going to go into personal reasons how, but I had my hands on recorded VHS tapes from TV airing in Japan. When I first started watching them, I had no subtitles, so I was just not even fan sub, so I was just like watching the recording of the Japanese TV. I really liked Dragon Ball a lot. I had already seen some other kind of anime before I watched Dragon Ball. Like I did watch Fist of the North Star first, I believe, but at this time I was like 5 or 6 years old. So to me, it was just like seeing cool like action on the screen is what really got my like young mind like into it. And there are a lot of aspects of my life that have been influenced because of watching that show. So, as many of you know, just to go over like a little bit really quick, back in that time, like we're talking like the 90s, the early 90s and stuff like that, anime here wasn't really a thing yet, like it is now, how it's culturally approved. It was actually seen as a lot less than it is now. Like you would get made fun of, people would just call them like Japanese cartoons, or there was really like an air of like almost xenophobia in a sense about like how they can't be as good as like American cartoons, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it, because a lot of those American cartoons that they were watching were Japanese and just didn't know it, like Speed Racer, like Transformers, stuff like that. It's like, so they're straight up watching anime and still belittling anime and comparing it to other anime. Not knowing that a lot of that stuff was coming out of Japan at the time. But regardless, I was an artist ever since I was like young. It was like my parents told me that I would communicate through illustration before I knew how to actually talk. I would like draw them notes of what I wanted and stuff from like a very, very little age. And I always wanted to be kind of a comic book artist because I was fascinated by superheroes and stuff like that. And when it came to Dragon Ball in particular, like my whole life kind of changed and like started revolving around that, where I nonstop only drew like Dragon Ball stuff to hone my skills. And then not only was the impact from drawing Dragon Ball stuff turning into other things, it made me want to start getting into like manga. It made me want to actually be like a mangaka, which I now know is like almost impossible without being Japanese. Like you're better off getting into like Korean webtoons if you're doing like if you want to go that route. Like they're a lot more accepting than Japanese culture is towards foreigners with their stuff. But it also made me want to get into martial arts, which is like another big part of my personality. It made me want to get into so many different things. And it was really hard being an anime fan at that time, and specifically a Dragon Ball fan, because even in high school, I went to a high school in like the 90s, in like the late 90s, and I graduated, and I had like a couple friends who like watched Dragon Ball and stuff, but most of my other friends were into like Bam Margera and CKY and all that stuff. Like, but me particularly, I had a small group of friends who was like really into Dragon Ball. We were in a regional high school that was like had thousands of kids, and not really anyone admitted to knowing it or knew it. Like, you know, I would wear like like there wasn't even really Japanese like Dragon Ball t-shirts or anything at the time that you could actually wear. There were, but like you had to like import them, and everything was like super expensive at that time. For example, the only figures that were out were the Super Battle Collection action figures, and I had the entire line of Super Battle Collection figures that I bought myself with like my own like lawn mowing money and stuff like that. And those some of those figures, like if you get up to the GT, like Great Monkey Ozora, Great like Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Vegeta, Gogeta, even Super 17, some of those figures were $50 each. And like, it's not like you can get them directly from Japan, because there wasn't like a Play Asia back then. There wasn't like a really easy way to get import stuff. You had to pretty much seek out specialty stores that had them imported, and the prices were super hiked up. But I had the whole set, and I spent like a lot of money on them, like as a kid, like just like saving up and like buying like one figure from the store. And then I started getting fan sub VHS tapes that had like the fan subs and whatnot, which were still the same kind of recordings from Japanese TV, but just with added fan subs. I'm sure you've seen them before. They're coming like the regular sleeves, and they just have like the little label on the side that usually has illustrations on it. And it's pretty much only like 3 episodes usually per tape. And those tapes could be like over $20 each. So again, I had the entire Dragon Ball VHS set of fan subs before it came to America. I joke about this a lot, but like when Dragon Ball first came to the States, like when it would show in the early mornings, I believe on WB from like, it was the Oceans Group dub, you know, the Rock the Dragon stuff. That, I was watching that, and of course, like everybody else, I was wanting to watch it in English too, because I was fascinated, and now I can actually understand it, but it would always go up to the Ginyu Saga and then like reset itself. So you have to keep watching the same thing over and over and over again until Funimation started putting out their stuff. I do know that Ocean's Group actually did the entire series up through the Buu Saga, which is called like the Rock the Dragon box or whatnot. But I started watching the Funimation stuff too with everybody else. Like I wasn't really watching it on Toonami too much. I was just waiting for it to come out on DVD or VHS at the time, and then purchasing it that way. But I had already finished it. Like by that time, I had already seen all of GT. I'd already watched like every movie that didn't come out in English yet. Like I'd seen everything. The video games were like really hard to come by too. I saw Rhymestyle's video. He was talking about Final Bout was like the only one that he had. I did have Final Bout and Ultimate Battle 22. I didn't have Legends because I couldn't really find it, but I did play like Super Butoden, I think on the Super Nintendo before I played Final Bout, and I did have that. It wasn't like a rental or anything. I wasn't a big fan of renting games and trading back in. I like to own my stuff, I guess for collecting purposes, but when I was literally collecting all these, like now I have like multiple versions of the entire series of Dragon Ball on DVD, on VHS, fan subbed, and the official VHS tapes. And I started having like too much stuff, and I started like selling stuff because I was going to go to college, and I just didn't have need for it. But my friends would all like talk to me about like, oh my god, did you see like Goku, like did you see like Vegeta getting controlled by Babidi and turning into like Majin Vegeta? And I'm like, well yeah, I mean I've seen Vegeta turn into a Super Saiyan 4, so of course I've seen that. And they're like, what's a Super Saiyan 4? Like, what's fusion? You know, it's like those are the conversations that were always really fun to have. And like, I of course had all the manga. I didn't have it in Japanese. I did have the original like English versions of the manga, the translated versions, but it just became such a huge part of my life that like Dragon Ball encompassed it for like a long time. Like every time a new Dragon Ball Z game would come out, I would get it day one. Like when Budokai got announced, I literally bought a PS2 just to play Budokai. So like it like got me into gaming really from the Dragon Ball games. It got me into martial arts from my fascination with like the martial arts in it. It really honed my artistry and made me like start taking art seriously instead of just like as a hobby. There's a lot of different parts of my personality that literally have deep roots connected just to Dragon Ball. And still to this day, I will rewatch Dragon Ball like once a year. So once a year, usually around my birthday in like July, I will put on Dragon Ball and just watch all the way through GT. And now I watch Super as well. I've seen Super like 3 times, but it's not that I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I'll change up how I watch it. Like sometimes I'll watch it with the Bruce Falconer score or composition with like the English voices, and sometimes I'll watch it in Japanese with the Falconer score or Japanese with the Japanese score. I just switch up how I watch it because I originally watched it in Japanese sub, so I tend to stick to that just because the characters' voices resonate with me more, just because that's how I got into the series. And my YouTube career started with Dragon Ball. If you go back, I've been on the platform almost 7 years. Like a lot of people don't know that, but like if you go back to my first videos, almost the whole first year is pretty much nothing but Dragon Ball. It is Dragon Ball Super reviews because it was airing at that time. There were how to draw series where I was like teaching people or doing the progress with like Caulifla, or Caulifla as like a Super Saiyan God, or all the forms of Frieza. I was doing like Let's Draws, and then I was doing Dokkan pulls and stuff like that, like, which was fun to do back in the day. Just like a bunch of like stuff starting with Dragon Ball. What I came to realize is that my Soul Calibur videos that I started making, because it was announced that Soul Calibur 6 was going to come out, I started making those videos, and those videos were popping off a lot more than my Dragon Ball stuff. And at the time, I was talking to like Geekdom semi-regularly, and I would talk to Rhymestyle once in a while, and I noticed that that was their show. Like, at that time, it was like them, For Never World, like all them. Like, they had the game on lock, and nothing new, any ideas that I presented were going to really wow anything. I was really figuring out how to be a YouTuber. I still haven't figured it out. I don't know if I will ever figure it out, but I just do my best. And I figured I'll let them have that game, because like, I'm not going to break into this space anyway. I'm not going to do what they're doing. I'm not going to rewrite the wheel. Like, they got this. I watch their content, so I'm just going to keep enjoying it that way, and I don't want to like, you know, make it all about my channel. So it shifted into like a fighting game channel / Soul Calibur channel, and we've been here to this day since that for like 6 years, because that was like the first like pretty much year of my YouTube career. And it like literally, when I'm thinking about it, like when I didn't really realize this, like even the forums, like I was the leader of Orange Star School on Dragon Ball Amino. And on Dragon Ball Amino, like, our school was one of the bigger schools. I think it was in the top 3 schools. It might have been the 4th biggest, but it was like a pretty big school. And there was a lot of like people that you know now for like art and stuff, like Super Rose and stuff like that. People, like, we were all in the same group together, so we would like talk and like do a bunch of stuff and write articles and, you know, talk about things, and like it was like a fun time. It took up a large part of my life. And to the just this point is that, because this video is kind of scattered all over the place, I didn't write anything for it, but when Akira passed and I heard, I was like, okay, like, this is extremely sad, and I have a really bad way of dealing with like death. I kind of just like put it to the back of my mind. So like when somebody passes, because I've had a lot of people in my personal life die and stuff, and when people pass, I just like throw it away. Like, I just kind of keep moving forward. I never like sit with my grief or acknowledge it, or like try to do any healthy way of like intercessorily like talking to myself, like, or trying to sit with it. It's just like not something that I like dealing with. Like, it's a fact of life that we all have to deal with, and it's like, it seems like a ripoff, like, to attain all of this like knowledge and attain all of this like skills and desires and dreams, and it just like goes away after a couple years, because like it's not that long. Like, Akira Toriyama was 68. I'm 40. So he was like 28 years older than me. That's not that. He's like close to my dad's age. Like, it's ridiculous like how close in age. Yeah, anyway, but like, so I'm bad with that. So like, at first I wasn't really dwelling on that. I was just like, man, this really sucks, and let me like make a post about it. But the thing that really got me was like, I was thinking about doing this video, and I was like, Dragon Ball really has impacted my life more than even I thought it did. Like, a lot of the decisions I made and a lot of like the directions in life that I went were part and partially due to Dragon Ball and its effect on me and being such a big part of my life. Like, I've read his other works. Like, I've read Dr. Slump, I've read Sandland, I've read some of the Dragon Quest manga, the promotional mangas. Like, I've played like the Dragon Quest games, Blue Dragon, stuff like that. Like, I am aware of his other stuff, but like Dragon Ball was just like, came to me when I was young at like the perfect time to just like my young brain to absorb it and let it like kind of take it over and become that part of me. And even though there's like other anime that like I will acknowledge are better, like better written and stuff, you can't deny the impact that Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star had on the industry. But I don't know where I would be without Dragon Ball, which sounds kind of pathetic, but it's like, I would probably be a totally different person at this point. And I don't even, like, it's scary to even think about. Just like one little decision, like liking an anime, can literally change the course and direction of like your entire life. It's pretty wild. Like, my wife is well aware of like how much into Dragon Ball I am, and at this point she doesn't even like acknowledge it. It's just like part of who I am. Like, it's there's nothing really to say. Like, I guess I just want to say thanks to Akira Toriyama for sticking with his vision and creating this thing that is not just part and parcel to me, but to a lot of us. Like, a lot of people in the community, a lot of people like around the world. Like, I said in my last video, I joked, if you go to someone's grandma, they'll pretty much know who Goku is. He's like, Dragon Ball has like become synonymous as like being up there at the nose with like Pokemon and like Superman and Batman and stuff. Like, he's up there. Like, almost everyone knows about him. And it's just cool to have been a part of this journey, to have not watched it from its inception, but close after, because Dragon Ball started in 1984 and I started watching in 1988. And just it being along there for me for my ride. Like, collecting all the cards and collecting the figures and collecting the movies and the videos and having such the cool experience of trying to track stuff down. Getting yelled at by my like stepmom at a time because like the fan subs are having Vegeta yell the F word at like Goku, or like I think it was actually Hirudegarn from the movie 12 for Fusion for Rebirth. He was like on top of his house and he was like, "Hey, you mother effer, don't blow up my effing house." It was when he like went to shoot at Capsule Corp. So like like to the point where like I wasn't even allowed to watch Dragon Ball anymore at that time. So she didn't know that I had the PS1 at the time, like the second version, the smaller version, and I did have the original also, but this I got the second version is because I had the screen that flipped up, like it had a little LCD screen, and I had a VCR that I stuck down the side of my bed. So you can connect AV cables to it. I would just watch Dragon Ball like in bed, and she thought I was like playing Spyro or something, I don't know. But it got to that point where like it was such an adventure just to be a part of it. Like watching Dragon Ball grow into this amazing monstrosity that it became. Like watching like people start to accept it and then enjoy it, and now it's like a beloved classic to a lot of people. Seeing all the love it gets through video games and cosplay and like a bunch of like just people sharing the love of the fandom, like conventions and all that stuff. Seeing like famous people like blurt it out, like NFL people giving an interview and saying they love Dragon Ball, or like people mentioning it in like a rap song or something like that. It's just like crazy to see how big it got, when to me it was just this little story of Kid Goku trying to figure out his place in the world. And through him and through that, I found my place in the world. And as cheesy and corny as that sounds, I'll be forever thankful to Akira Toriyama for creating the thing that means the most to me. Besides my wife, obviously. But I mean, out of everything like that's ever existed, I would rather throw away like Soul Calibur, and I would rather throw away Naruto and throw away like everything else that I love to keep Dragon Ball around. Like, thank you Akira Toriyama, thank you Bird Studio, thank you Toei Animation, thank you Shueisha, thank you Weekly Shonen Jump. Thank Akira Toriyama for creating me. And that's going to be the video for today, guys. I just want to say thank you to him. Thank you to you guys for watching, and leave a like if you liked the video. As I always say, guys, I love it. Thank you.
And thank you.